Welcome to your Digital Mentor podcast. I am your host, Emmanuel Opon, and today we'll be sharing our thoughts and experiences developing and working on your Digital Mentor podcast, especially during this first season. And as it comes to an end, we'd like to share bits and pieces of what we've learned with you. So joining me today, we have powerful women. We have Dr. Christine Boinett, the creator and executive producer, Dr. Alice Matimba, our senior producer, Isabella Malta, also our producer, Catherine Holmes, our marketing lead, and Mariana Vaz, our editor. So I know you all, but our audience don't. So can you please introduce yourselves and tell our audience a bit about you, your background, your work, so that they can get to know you better? We can start with Isabella.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Brazil and I've done my undergraduate MPhil here in the UK, and I have a biomedical science and biochemistry background, and I work with the Wellcome Advanced Courses and Scientific Conferences as the Assistant Overseas Courses Manager.
Alice?
Hi, so I'm Alice Matimba and I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I've been living here in the UK for about 3.5 years, working at the Wellcome Genome Campus Advanced Courses and Scientific Conferences as the Overseas Courses Manager. And I'm really, really happy to have been part of the production team for this podcast.
And Catherine?
Hi, so I'm Catherine. I'm based at the Wellcome Genome Campus and I work for the Connecting Science team, which supports marketing for advanced courses and scientific conferences. So I'm very, very lucky to work with Alice and Isabella on a regular basis. But this has been a wonderful experience to join such an amazing team.
Mariana?
Hi, I'm Mariana. I'm a freelance videographer and video editor, and I'm the sound editor for the podcast, currently based in the UK, in Cambridge, but originally from Portugal. And it's been a great experience being in this podcast as well, and we hope to bring you more in the next season.
And Christine?
Hi, I'm Christine. I create and executive producer on the show. But in my day job, I am a bioinformatics training manager, meaning I train researchers in bioinformatics or health data science and how to analyze genomic data, primarily delivered through 2 projects, which is JUNO and GPS2. These are 2 global genomic sequence surveys for Streptococcus pneumonia and Streptococcus agalactiae.
And Emmanuel, I go by Ella. I work as a producer with this podcast team, and my background is in biomedical engineering, global service and education. In the day, I work as an assistant teacher with City Year in Harlem. And sort of moving on, I want our audience to sort of learn more about sort of the reason, like what drove you, this team, to sort of come together and sort of work on this podcast. So I worked as a Watson Fellow last year, and I worked with an organization, SESH, Social Entrepreneurship to Spare Health, and they work on crowdsourcing. And so I worked with them to sort of learn more about crowdsourcing, and somehow got into a contest to sort of help steering it and implementing it and then analyzing everything. And so we came upon Christine's proposal for one of the submissions, and we were also excited. So we decided to sort of reach out because for me personally, I thought this was like a really novel approach to getting mentorship to everyone in a way that is like very accessible and everyone can listen to it regardless of who they are, and it would go everywhere. So I worked with the SESH team to reach out to Christine, and I've been working with everyone since then. Christine, can you tell us your why for this podcast?
Thanks, Ella. And actually, again, I should just thanks that Ella came onto the podcast very early on and one of the early adopters of it. But the podcast really was born out of a mentorship contest. Late 2019, Alice, whom is on the podcast, is the senior producer, caught me over a tea break and we were just chatting and she goes, listen, there's this contest you have to apply for. And I was like, tell me more about it. And we had such an engaging conversation about mentorship and trying to deliver this to the Global South, which we are both from. And so it began the application. So at the time I was commuting for very many hours. I was commuting 4 hours a day. And I listened to a lot of podcasts because music gets really boring and mundane for 4 hours every day. So in December, I then submitted my application for the podcast. And this is, from discussions with Alice, and got really good feedback from it. And the podcast is actually a result of the mentorship contest itself, which was held last year by TDR and SESH. TDR is a program for research and training in tropical diseases. And SESH is which stands for Social Entrepreneurship to Spur Health, is a crowdsourcing group whose focus is on improving health. The competition, obviously, as I said, was launched in 2019. I hope they'll be doing more because it spurred so many great regional winners. To each, I was one of 4. The purpose of the contest was really to engage people in lower and middle income countries to generate practical ideas to improve research mentorship. And from that, the development of the content was because, I experienced great mentors having schooled in kind of the global north for a really long time and did all my higher education in the UK, and had such great mentors as I was going through, and had these really great conversations that I felt that really needed to be opened up to the rest of the world. And the podcast is really just to break down any physical or geographical barriers. And also additionally was a great way to showcase some superb science and great scientists that are coming from the global south. And then, I met Joe and Ella, and sight unseen, they kind of gave us the gusto to keep going. And Alice obviously was there again. And the team really grew with Isabella, and then Mariana and Catherine, and obviously you, Ellis. It was kind of go from the summer. So, and that's pretty much where we are with the podcast today, with a super sensational six team.
When you were sort of listening, sort of the whys, I was like, you've said many of the things that I couldn't articulate so eloquently. Alice, Christine sort of said a bit about if you could tell us your perspective and sort of like your why for doing this, and sort of as we keep on going with this podcast and transitioning into season 2, hopefully. Yeah.
So actually in my role, I network a lot, and I'm always looking out for activities around, say, capacity building. And, so I subscribe to some newsletters like TDR Global and so forth. So whenever I see something that could be of interest, I try to engage in that content and see if it would be of benefit. And because most of the times the work that we do, we're connecting with people in the global south, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and doing capacity building training and that kind of stuff. So my mind is always wired around those kinds of, calls for this, calls for that. So when Christine applied for this competition and she won it, I was like, I want in. But actually, on top of that, the whole mentorship thing has always been, on my mind. And because, for me, I had several mentors in my career. But, when I look back, I wish I had maximized on having mentors, because I had several people that, I could talk to, that guided me through some of my decisions for my career. But now knowing that, mentors can really, really be useful people, and I wish I had done a whole lot more and bothered them more and so forth. So I hope that researchers, especially in the global south, are able to understand that these resources are available, and that there are ways that they can maximize on getting mentors and getting people that can advise them in their careers. So this podcast actually also started just when we went into lockdown because of COVID. I found the podcast meetings, it became like a virtual hangout joint. I would look forward to meeting my friends, just a bunch of fun people every Thursday. And that has kept me, going. And I've really, really enjoyed the interactions and working together as a team. And that's what has kept me going. Of course, finally, the best part about this is, doing the research. So we do a lot of research. We meet people and listen, and we find people that have such inspiring stories, and, just listening to them talk about their heartfelt opinions and experiences. Yeah, it's really, really quite interesting. And that has been one of the things that keeps me wanting to do more of it and getting into the second season.
Yeah. When you were talking, Alice, I was thinking of a mentor who had really helped me, when I was in undergrad, and to have sort of that resource reach everybody is, I think, what this podcast stands for, or means to me at least. Isabella?
Yeah, so I started in the podcast, I think, soon as Christine got the notification that you were interested in her project, and Alice told me, she brought it up, and I had just started working. It was really early on, indeed, in end of February or March. So Alice told me about it, and I found it really interesting because I also love podcasts. I listen to each podcast every day. So I was interested in the project straight away. So pretty much Alice got me involved from that point. And I think what I love the most is also the research. I've learned so many interesting things, but also the opportunity to talk about things that we find quite relevant. We spoke about topics that affected my friends, for instance, and my friends were talking about it. So it was a nice opportunity to bring it up, but also topics that affect in the world as a whole, like the diversity episode. So that was my favorite part.
And Catherine, what drove you? And also, I guess you can also add your favorite parts, and then we can transition from there too, after we hear Marianne's favorite part too.
Sure. So I feel like the luckiest woman in the world because I'm a marketing person by profession. So I'm not a scientist, but through my association with ACSC, so Advanced Courses Scientific Conferences, and working with Alice and Isabella, I was invited to be part of the team. And what I thought initially was going to be a contribution towards marketing, so sort of a few suggestions about how people could promote this. I then realised very quickly that I was part of the team, and that was just incredible. And I've loved every second of it. And part of the thing that I am so passionate about as a marketing person for Advanced Courses Scientific Conferences is the drawing out outcomes and impact. So not just marketing features, but actually demonstrating how the different things that we do and that we're involved in actually have a tangible impact and make a difference to research culture, people's education, people's opportunities globally. And so this has really just been an extension of that, but in such a wonderful format. And again, I've learned so much. I've learned so much from 5 really talented women, but also so much about research culture globally. And that will stay with me forever. So very, very honoured to be part of this team.
Thank you. And also, when Isabella was talking about sort of the topics and sort of what that means and reaching out to friends and sort of sharing this, and then having someone who is able to sort of make sure that what we are producing also gets to the people that we want them to get to. So thank you.
No, you're very welcome. It's been a pleasure.
And Mariana?
Yeah, so the way I got involved is I did an internship last year at the Welcome Genome campus with the Advanced Courses and Scientific Conferences team. And I've been working on a freelance basis with them ever since. Catherine contacted me about this, and I had to say yes, of course, because I knew I was going to be with great people, working with people that I already met. So it's been a great experience, and I think that my favorite part has been the content and the emphasis on diversity. Just learning about the different guests and with different backgrounds and all the great work that they're doing in their own environment. And I think it really shows that you can really make a difference. It doesn't matter where you're from. And I think the podcast gives like a voice to all of these people that maybe otherwise wouldn't have this voice.
Thank you. Yeah, and that is also my favorite part, sort of having voices that are on head, reach out to people who might really, really, really need to hear those voices. And also like the conversations, the different topics that we have, from engaging and empowering youth. I think that's my favorite too, decolonizing global health. So yeah, that is my favorite. I also like the research too, I have to say, in addition to what Isabella and everybody's saying, sort of the research and sort of looking at different topics that is out and like what everybody's saying about sort of like what we are going to talk about.
Can I quickly interrupt you and just say, again, to the awesome team in front of me, I can't thank you enough for bringing this podcast to life. I just wanted the world to know, like, this is such a diverse group of women. If you don't mind, I'm just going to out all of you and say these are sensational women in STEM, all from different parts of the world. We've got Isabella from Brazil, Alice from Zimbabwe, Catherine from the UK, Mariana from Portugal, Ella originated from Ghana but lives in New York, and me from Kenya. So again, you just brought, these women are really fantastic, and this is the world in front of me from this Zoom screen. It's just I brought this podcast to life. So I just wanted to, again, I can't thank you guys enough. So I'll keep thanking you later on in the podcast, but I just wanted to the world to know that you guys have really, it's a global community in a community. Thanks.
Thank you. So what is your favorite part about the production?
So I will say, just like Isabella and you, the research actually for me has been the most interesting bit. I mean, this is the type of reading that we do is so different from what I do in my day job. And I just learning all the different things and kind of the technical aspects of some of the topics. Like mentorship is super technical, by the way. Lots of people have done a lot of research on it, and so honored to have very esteemed guests who know a lot more about the topic. So when we're interviewing them, I'm learning from them at the same time. So I come out so enriched. So in the podcast itself, I am a mentee. I sit there and I listen. I just happen to be the host, but honestly, it's probably my favorite part of it, and meeting new people. So I don't know, everybody else, please jump in with other things, but the research was also super fun. And also, as Alice said, it's like meeting 6 friends and just chatting all the time. So it's really energetic.
We sort of like have to, remind ourselves that we, it's time. We need to stop we need to go. It's the end of the day. It's usually quite hard to separate, and it's been quite nice.
But the guests have been amazing. Yeah, indeed, as you said, it's just listening in. I'm a mentee as well. We've had so many great advice. So that's been very, very enlightening.
Isabella, I know you said one of your favorite parts sort of sharing the podcast with like friends. What particular topics or sort of ones were you excited to sort of share with friends and colleagues?
The imposter syndrome, because I had at least 3 friends doing PhDs at the time, and I know they were suffering from big imposter syndrome. 3 women. And I'm like, look this up. You definitely suffer from it because you're good enough. You're definitely so clever. And I have these amazing women coming to me and thinking they're not good enough, or they feel bad, that they're not clever enough in the lab or whatever. And I could see it, that they have imposter syndrome straight away. And so that was one of the episodes that really spoke to my friends.
And Catherine, do you have any favorite parts of this? I don't remember if you said it. Did you?
No, I didn't. I think for me, equality and diversity was perhaps my favourite episode. And I think that's because on the programme that I work for, we do a lot of work around trying to raise awareness about that, but also trying to come up with solutions to level the playing field. People think that it's talked about a lot. And I think that there is that perception, but actually there isn't much, going on to really change things. And that's why this for me was such a defining episode, because this was real people with real life stories. They'd lived it, but then what they were doing is they weren't letting it hold them back. They were coming up with solutions, and the motto of to quote Alice, is pay it forward. And that's such a powerful thing. And I think whether you're Black, whether you're a woman, to have tangible role models is such a powerful thing. We just don't have enough of those people that are brave enough to say, I've lived this, I've experienced this, but look at what we can achieve. And I think, it was a very emotive episode, which I was really pleased to listen to and be part of.
Thank you. I was thinking of myself, like I'm 24 years old, and I still sometimes sort of, depending on like what I'm aspiring to, I look for people who look like me to sort of see if I can do it. And it's not because I don't think I can do it, but it gives me extra vim or like extra belief that I can do it. And so this is what this podcast is also offering. So thank you, team, for sharing your different experiences and perspective producing this season 1.
And I think, just to interrupt you, so actually one of the things that I found really, really amazing, and that's obviously because as a team, we came up with themes, we came up with topics, a lot of discussion, debate, what should we do, what topics should we go for, whom should we invite? And for me, I think the fact that we were able to pick on really topical issues, things that are current, things that are in the newspapers making headlines, and we were able to turn them into discussions with people that are thinking about it as well and are willing to share what, their thoughts and their experiences. I think when we started, we didn't know what it would turn out. And some of the topics, we should do this, we don't know yet. But in the end, it turned out to be a very nice package of topics that are actually quite topical issues, in a lot of media right now.
Well said, Alice. Well said.
Yeah, and just to add, the women in leadership positions in STEM, also, I didn't produce that episode, I didn't research, so I listened to it just completely unbiased, and I loved it.
It's the one that powerful. Everyone keeps saying they've gone on walks and they listen to it. And this is, women from the Global South and Global North, and saying, I've learned so much. I honestly, when I was listening to it, as these women were speaking, I'm like, my goodness, I hope you've written it down somewhere. So thanks. Thanks to all the producers. I think Alice was producing that one. So again, do read the stuff in the description box, because we can't always fit everything in each episode. But for sure, the research team has sorted you guys out for sure.
And Christine, do you wanna end us?
Well, before you end, actually, I've got something to say. So I was actually hoping you'd ask us what did we maybe like the least, not necessarily dislike, but like the least. And I want to go first. So the one thing that I didn't quite like was having to listen to myself during the editing or post-editing process. I absolutely hated it. And I know that like Mariana, sends an email and says, oh yeah, this is ready. And my heart just thinks like, oh my gosh, I have to listen to myself. But fortunately, you see, the best part is fortunately, our executive producer and creator did a fantastic job of taking care of that for us. So that even if I didn't listen to the whole thing, but at least, we would still produce something nice in the end. So thank you so much, Christine, for covering that.
No, man, you guys are talented individuals. I like you, Alice. I really don't like listening to myself, but it's something I have to sit through every now and again to listen through. But again, you guys have the talent and have brought such a great podcast episode. So again, research team, producers, and hosts, brought it together. So it made my job fairly easy. And Mariana, obviously super, super talented. Cut out all the ums and ahs, which, and also I realize I say kind of a lot. So I've been trying to work on that in my day life to stop saying kind of.
And I need to stop saying like. Like, it's very difficult. Shall we have a sneak peek into the next season? What you're expecting to have next season?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good question. I think we'll hopefully have some bonus episodes coming in between the season, but next season we want to probably do more skill stuff. So writing skills, grant writing skills, maybe some interview skills. I want to do more of a skills lab. And then, as we're based in a genetics institute, maybe do a bit more genetic topics surrounding that, because I'm super interested in genetics. But again, we're still at the planning stages. So listeners, please send us your suggestions. But what do you guys think? I'll throw it back at you guys, back to the room.
I definitely agree. Sort of building the skill sets, and sometimes you can't always access it. Like, you have to connect with a professor who then have to give you their time. But then if you're able to just listen to it while walking and then go and implement it home, that is nice. But as you said, listening to our audience and sort of getting their feedback and sort of like maybe what they want to hear more of.
Yeah, we've come up with a few ideas. I think the skills thing is definitely going to be on top of the radar, but obviously I think that we'll also just be looking out for anything topical, anything trendy and that kind of stuff. I think we'll always have our ears open so we can remain relevant and people can keep listening to us.
Yeah, and please send over suggestions, as Christine mentioned.
Absolutely. The email will be in the description box. And yeah, I'm thinking in terms of like season 2 and what we want to hear our listeners' impact stories. So if you've got any stories of how the podcast or certain episodes have impacted your life in any positive way, please send us a DM via our Twitter account, which is @mentor_podcast. That's mentor_podcast. Or also send us via email using inquiries@yourdigimentor.net. That's inquiries@yourdigi, mentor.net. So before we go, I just wanted to thank a couple of people, actually more than a couple of people, who really helped us bring this podcast alive. First of all, to the team, but I'll get to them because they deserve a special mention. But first and foremost, our funders, Welcome Sanger Institute, Welcome Advanced Courses in Scientific Conferences, and Social Entrepreneurship to Spur Health. Also Joe Tucker, who is part of SESH Global, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and also the University of North Carolina. Our early adopters, Darren Hughes from the Welcome Advanced Courses in Scientific Conferences, and Charlie Weatherhog from the Welcome Sanger Institute, who believed in what we were doing sight unseen. We'd also like to thank a few more people that helped our relatively unknown podcast get to some listeners early on and help us disseminate the podcast. That's Steve Palmer, Katrina Clark, Alison Cranage, Matthew Midgley, and all from the Welcome Sanger Institute comms team. Piravin Gopalasingham and the Cabana Network from our friends at the Genome Campus in Cambridge, based at the EMBL European Bioinformatics Institute. Grace Maura and the African Academy of Sciences. Stephen Bentley from the Welcome Sanger Institute, who introduced our podcast to the JUNO and GPS network where I work. And honestly, last but not least, I keep saying honestly because I'm so touched by this team, our Sensational Six. That's producers Alice Matimba, Isabella Malta, Emanuela Pong, our media lead, Catherine Holmes, and our talented maestro editor, Mariana Vaz. Please do check them out. They're all really, really talented individuals who have amazing Twitter accounts. I don't have Twitter, but you can definitely follow them on their socials. It will be in our description box below. And also to all our guests who came on the show and shared the podcast with their personal and professional networks. And also to our families and friends who we reached out to fairly early on and probably bombarded their WhatsApps and emails and kind of Facebook, every form of media that we could find to get our podcast out there. So thank you to our friends and family. and to finally our listeners honestly spreading the word. That's how our podcast has grown, and we're still very small, but we're trying to grow. And honestly, our success has really been through word of mouth. So thank you so much for supporting us. As always, our goal is for this podcast to be shared as a resource. So please remember to tell people about us, along with sending us your comments and questions, as well as your impact stories. We're asking you, our listeners, to suggest what you'd like to listen to next season. So please reach out to us on Twitter at mentor_podcast. That's mentor_podcast, or via email by using inquiries@yourdigimentor.net. That's inquiries@yourdigi mentor.net. Thanks again to all our listeners for continuing to support us. It's been a real pleasure bringing you these episodes. So look out for us and our bonus content in between the seasons.
Thank you, and see you in season 2.
Bye everybody.
Bye.